Okay, I'm going in. I'm going to start this conversation about infidelity. So, this is part one. Why people are afraid to even start a relationship because they're afraid of being hurt. They don't want to be cheated on. This is coming up next on our next edition of Love Relationships Real Talk. Come on. You can do it. Let's do this. Okay, so I've gotten several letters about infidelity. And so we're going to start the conversation off by talking about people who don't want to enter into relationships because they're afraid of being hurt because people have cheated on them in the past. So I've gotten several emails, but this one was very poignant and very well stated. And I think that I can work with this viewer. So check this out. I attract cheaters. I have no idea why. I have been in 4 significant relationships over the past 15 years, and each of these men cheated habitually. I don't believe this is one of those situations where I manifested in my adult life what I lived in my childhood. My dad adores my mom. They have been married for 48 years. My dad and my uncles always treated me and my sisters and cousins like little princesses. All of this is to say, I don't have daddy issues. I am being honest and fair when I tell you that physically I'm a solid 8, and finding a man has never been the issue. But finding a man willing to commit to monogamy has been almost impossible. I'm literally at my wit's end because I don't know what to do. The past 4 years, I have been afraid to date anyone more than a few times, but I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life either. I want a family and a mate that I don't have to feel anxious about their every move. I want to be able to trust my husband, but I don't see how I will ever be able to do that at this point. This is baggage I want to let go of. Even so, I admit that whenever I feel someone is getting too close, or I feel like I really like them, I find a way to end it. I've gone to therapy and nothing has changed. I know that I'm attracting these people, and I know that I'm sabotaging myself with people who may not even have these indicators that they're going to cheat. Do you have any insights on what I can do? I'm ready to let these trust issues go and be happy. So girl, I hear you. And I've gotten several emails, as I said before, from people who have trust issues to the point that they attract what they don't want. So if you don't mind, I'd like to use your story as I go through my suggested action steps. Funny thing is, although things seem to be really complicated and convoluted with your situation, whenever our emotions are involved, that's the way things seemed. But this decision-making process that you have to go through, this process that you have to go through to heal from the pains of your past is actually very simple. So although I could probably come up with a lot of tips, and keep in mind that these tips are just suggestions because I have no clue if they might even work. They just seem to make sense to me. So I'm going to offer them. But these tips could untangle your dilemma. The first thing that you should do is get in your mind and commit to letting it go. Let your past go. That's all you can do. I know that it seems like it's an indicator that you can expect from people, but taking that mindset into a new relationship, it is a direct and devastating action for self-sabotage when you don't let past hurts go and start anew with your new potential love. If you take that into your next relationship, it's a surefire way to destroy the relationship before it can even get off the ground. So you have to decide that you're going to let those experiences go. Those experiences happened for a reason. It sounds like you're going through the process of dealing with your emotional and mental issues to try and determine what you were supposed to learn from those experiences, what you were supposed to learn from those experiences. And it sounds like that's still a work in progress, which is perfectly fine. As long as you're aware that this is an issue for you and this gets in the way of your love relationships, you're in a good place. I want you to take a look at a video that I did last season, and it talked about your frequency level. So your frequency level is the vibe you put out in more direct terms. It's the vibe that you put out to other people. And in fact, as you mentioned in your letter, you attract a certain type of person to yourself. If you have an expectation that people are going to cheat on you, more times than not, you're going to attract those people who have the propensity to cheat. And so you have to change your mindset. You have to change your intention that you're taking into your new relationship and heighten your frequency for what you're willing to accept into your life. I mentioned in that video that there are certain things and people that we attract into our lives that other people, they don't have an issue with at all. So check that video out because it's a really good way to address where you are with step one in letting it go, is developing and creating a higher frequency level to attract the person that you actually want in your life. And it sounds to me from your letter that you're almost there in determining that and getting that cleared in your mind. The only piece in your letter that makes me think that you're still a work in progress in this issue is that you still feel a sense of impossibility that you're going to actually meet the person that you want. So we're working on that. We're getting to that point where you realize and that you feel and you believe that you deserve to have someone in your life who's going to be monogamous. So that's the hardest thing. And that's why it's number one tip. If you don't do anything else, get intentional about letting your past hurts and experiences go. And don't hold future potential loves to that same standard, because it's a low standard, isn't it? It's something beneath you that you don't deserve. So don't hold them to that standard. Bring them up here and hold them to a higher level of expectation. And that's what you will draw into your life once you get all that other stuff cleared out. Tip number 2 is probably one of the most difficult things you can do, because a lot of times we want to do these things on our own and we don't want to come across as seeming desperate. But for your case, it might be interesting for you to ask for support. That's the tip. Ask for support from your friends and family members, because that person who's important in your life knows who you are, what you're about, and what a good person you are. And they might know someone who is in the same place that you're in, and they care about the both of you. So that's a really good way sometimes to connect with people. Now, you don't want to take on everybody somebody is trying to matchmake for you, because sometimes that comes out of desperation on their part. They want you to be in a relationship. They want you to have a husband. They're ready for you to have children. So family members and friends aren't always the best people to have making these connections for you. But if you choose a family member that's a little impartial, or that's not as that is not as attached to you being in a relationship as maybe some others are, or a friend, or even a relationship coach who can help you connect with just one person, right? We only need one, who is on that same frequency level, that same vibe, the same level of intention that you are in developing a long-term relationship. asking for support from these people might help you connect more with people who are on the same level that you are. A lot of times as a relationship coach, I would suggest to people who want to start a new relationship, who are looking for long-term relationships, but it's not coming to them. They're not meeting people just like randomly or in different situations or at high frequencies. I would suggest that they go online. But for you, I wouldn't suggest that because you're still working out some kinks in terms of your frequency level and what you're attracting. So I would be intentional about asking people to help you meet people who know what level you're on and what level someone else is on and whether or not that would be a good match. Tip number 3, on your first few dates, be relaxed and easygoing. Don't be too intense. This is practicing leaving your baggage behind you. So don't go into a date making these quips or these side comments about whether or not someone's going to cheat on you or not. Don't even mention that. Don't bring that up. Be relaxed, be easygoing, and don't have this dark cloud hanging over your head that's saying, I've been cheated on, I'm a victim, I feel scarred by that. Don't walk around that way, and don't enter into a new possible love relationship that way. So whatever first date you choose to go on, make sure that it's fun, that it's active, that it's something that you can really get into learning more about that person's personality, their humor, and things like that, opposed to getting too deep into conversation. Because a lot of times when we carry this type of hurt within us and we start having intense conversations, of course, this is going to come up in those conversations. But this isn't really the time yet to bring that out. That comes later, and we'll talk about that in another tip. Now, the next 2 tips, 4 and 5, are tips that you should carry out once you've determined that this really has high potential for a long-term relationship. If it does not have potential, you're still in your first dates, your first weeks, or whatever the case is, you should not do tips 4 and 5 until you're absolutely certain that you're going to be taking your relationship to the next level. So that's a caveat for these next 2 tips. And tip number 4, after it has become clear that the 2 of you are moving out of the friend zone or the like zone and into a more serious relationship status, share your past and your growth with your love. It's important that they know this about you because it may help them to understand you as certain situations come up or certain incidences come up. They'll know what buttons you have, and when they push them, they'll know where it's coming from or why you're reacting in a particular way. We're human beings. We're not perfect, and things are going to come up that we're not going to necessarily be aware of why we're reacting or doing the thing that we're doing. But when they do, it's very important that we have the facility and the comfortability with our potential love, with the person that we're in a love relationship with, to have a conversation, to be able to talk it out, to be honest about where these emotions are coming from, why you're reacting and responding the way that you are, so that your relationship can heal and grow. And that helps you to personally heal and grow. So in order for your partner to be able to even engage in this type of relationship or support you in this area of your life, they have to know where you're coming from. Why are you having these feelings? What experiences have you had in the past that have led to you to react and respond this way? Tip number 5 is, as you and your love are growing and becoming closer and developing your relationship, you become more vulnerable inside of this relationship. So what I'm suggesting that you do in tip 5 is to stay present. Stay present to the fact that, yes, you have these experiences from the past. You have these scars. You have these feelings of betrayal, mistrust, and all of those things are still issues for you, even though you feel like, they've been dealt with or you're dealing with them inside your relationship. You're still vulnerable in those areas. So stay present to the fact that these things still exist for you. And then treat your love with the level of trust that they have earned. So, for example, don't respond to them during arguments as if they're the person who did that thing to you that you're still hurt about. If they didn't do that to you, then don't respond to them as if they did. Don't hold them accountable for someone else's sins. Don't be so controlling over someone else because you're afraid that they're going to do a certain thing. If they haven't already, you're afraid that they're going to do it. That's the baggage that you're still carrying, and you have to be very, very careful about displacing those emotions on someone else, on your new love. And then just continue to talk and communicate and be honest with one another. And most importantly, go for it. Take the risk. It's worth it. And it's not only worth it because you get the whole imagery and fantasy around being in love and having a love in your life. It's even more worth it because you get to heal and grow and become more of who you're supposed to be as a human being as you work through these past hurts and heal from the pains of the past. I'll never forget an old adage that I read about once that talked about how we receive love. You receive love open, with your hands and your heart open. If you enter into a relationship afraid of taking the risk, afraid of making yourself vulnerable, afraid of trusting an individual, you enter into your relationships like this. And you cannot receive love closed. You can't receive love with a closed heart. So I hope this helped. So next week, we're going to talk about more relationship hacks, an interesting one. Maybe you or someone that you know who's struggling with long distance relationships or looking at having a long distance relationship would be interested to check out. So I'll see you next time on Love Relationships, Real Talk. I'm Phoebe Smith.